What do you do when someone who once disappeared, someone who walked out of your life without a word, suddenly decides to come back? That question has echoed in the minds of countless women, leaving them torn between emotions. Part of you may feel curious, wondering why they came back. Another part of you feels hurt, remembering the silence, the unanswered calls, the nights spent overthinking. And deep down, there's also a whisper asking, do I even owe them an answer? This moment, when a vanisher returns, is not just about what you should say, it's about what you should feel, what you should realize, and how you should stand in your own power. Because the truth is, the way you respond in that moment will either pull you back into the same cycle of pain or lift you higher into a place of strength and clarity. Let's be honest. Being vanished is one of the most confusing and painful experiences in dating. One day, they make you feel wanted, seen, and maybe even special. The next day, they are gone. No explanation, no goodbye, just silence that screams louder than words. That silence doesn't just hurt. It makes you question yourself. Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? Was it something I said? This is the cruel game of a vanisher. They leave you carrying all the questions while they walk away without answers. But here's where psychology comes in. Human beings are wired to seek closure. When something is left unfinished, our brain keeps returning to it like an open loop. That's why you find yourself replaying old messages, overanalyzing moments, trying to fill in the blanks. It isn't weakness, it's biology. Your mind is desperate to close the story. And when they come back, that same brain says, finally, maybe now I'll get my closure. But I want you to pause, because this video is not about chasing closure, it's about choosing power. What you will learn today is not just what to say when the vanisher comes back, but how to stand in a position where you no longer need their approval, their explanation, or their return to feel complete. And I promise you this, if you stay with me until the end of this video, you will walk away with words that not only answer them, but words that will transform the way you see yourself. That's my offer to you: clarity, confidence, and strength. So let's set the stage. A vanisher returning can trigger all kinds of emotions. You may feel relief because the person who hurt you is finally back, almost like proof that you weren't crazy for caring. You may feel validation, like your worth has been confirmed because they chose to come back. But you may also feel anger, remembering the hollow space they left in your heart. This emotional tug-of-war is exactly why this moment is so critical. If you allow those emotions to take over, you risk repeating the same cycle. If you step back, breathe, and see the bigger picture, you claim the power they once tried to take away from you. Psychology tells us something interesting. People who vanish often return not because they suddenly discovered your worth, but because something in their life shifted. Maybe they got bored. Maybe their options didn't work out. Maybe they realized you gave them a kind of attention they can't find elsewhere. But notice, none of these reasons are about you. They are about them. When they vanish, it's not your flaw. When they return, it's not your victory. It's simply a reflection of their instability, not your value. Here's the deeper truth. Their return is not a compliment. It's a test. It's the universe asking you, will you accept the same treatment again, or will you rise above it? This is where your growth begins. Because the response you give in that moment doesn't just answer them, it defines how you see yourself. Every word you choose is a mirror of your self-worth. So as we begin this journey, I want you to imagine this. Instead of waiting, wondering, and doubting, you become the one who chooses. You're no longer asking, will they stay this time? Instead, you're asking, do they even deserve a place in my life? That small shift changes everything. When you start thinking this way, you take yourself from being the abandoned to being the chooser. And that is where true empowerment begins. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to respond with calm strength, with clarity, and with dignity. You will walk away with sentences that are short, powerful, and impossible to ignore. But more importantly, you will walk away with the realization that you don't need to prove yourself to someone who disappeared. Because the greatest power you can ever hold is not in getting them back. It's in knowing you don't need them back. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to give you not just the words to say, but the mindset that makes those words unshakable. Once you have that, no vanisher, no ghost, no disappearing act will ever hold power over you again. This isn't just dating advice, it's life advice. Because the moment you learn how to handle people who vanish, you learn how to handle anyone who tries to devalue your worth. And that is your reward for staying until the end. Freedom. Freedom from waiting, freedom from confusion, freedom from being controlled by someone else's silence. Now let's go deeper. When someone vanishes, the silence cuts deeper than words ever could. You wait for a message that never comes. You stare at your phone hoping for a call that never arrives. And in that waiting, your mind becomes a battlefield. The silence starts to whisper lies. You weren't important enough. You weren't good enough. If you were truly special, they wouldn't have left. These thoughts are heavy and they hurt, but let me remind you of something powerful. The disappearance of another person does not define your worth. It only reveals their inability to handle connection, honesty, and maturity. Think about it. A person who values you does not vanish without warning. A person who respects you does not leave you questioning your own value. A person who is capable of real love does not create a wound and walk away without even looking back. Their disappearance says nothing about who you are. It only exposes who they are not. And yet, many women internalize this pain, carrying the weight of someone else's weakness on their own shoulders. This is the cruel trick of abandonment. It makes you blame yourself for choices that were never yours. But psychology gives us clarity here. When people experience sudden disconnection, their brain registers it as danger. It's called the threat response. Your body reacts as though you've lost something vital like security or safety. That's why you feel anxiety, why you struggle to sleep, why your thoughts keep circling back. It's not because you're broken. It's because your nervous system is trying to protect you from rejection. Understanding this helps you see the truth. The pain is real, but it isn't proof that you lack value. It's only proof that you are human. The hardest part is not the vanishing itself. It's the unanswered questions. Silence can be louder than shouting. You replay every conversation searching for a clue. You think back to their last message, their last smile, their last words, trying to decode what went wrong. But here's the reality. Sometimes there is no explanation that will ever make sense. Sometimes the vanisher disappears because it is the only language they know. They don't have the courage to face conflict, so they hide behind silence. They don't have the emotional depth to deal with real connection, so they escape. And when you realize this, you start to see that their leaving wasn't a statement about your worth. It was a statement about their limitations. Here's something vital to hold on to. Your heart is not fragile because someone left. Your heart is strong because you survived it. Every tear, every night of confusion, every unanswered call, you are still here. You made it through. That is resilience, and resilience is one of the strongest qualities a woman can ever own. The fact that you are listening to this now means you chose to keep going, and that choice is proof of strength far greater than their weakness. Let's be real. People who vanish often believe they can leave without consequence. They think they can disappear, and you will wait. They think they can return, and you will still be standing in the same place. But that is where they are wrong. Because every day you breathe through the pain, every day you take one step forward, you are no longer the same woman they left. You are wiser, you are stronger, you are sharper. And when they return, they are not returning to the same version of you. They are facing someone who has walked through fire and come out standing. Psychologists talk about attachment wounds. These are the invisible scars left when someone important abandons you. But here's the beautiful part. Scars are not weaknesses. They are signs of healing. A scar means the wound has closed. A scar means you lived through it. A scar means you cannot be broken in the same way again. So if you carry scars from being vanished, hold them with pride. They are proof that you have endured something many cannot even imagine, and yet you remain standing with your dignity intact. Here's the truth about vanishers. Their silence is not about you. It is about their inability to show up, their inability to commit, their inability to respect another person's heart. When they vanish, they reveal their fear. When they vanish, they show their lack of courage. And courage is the foundation of love. Without it, connection crumbles. You cannot build a future with someone who runs at the first sign of discomfort. You cannot create stability with someone who disappears when life becomes inconvenient. So let me tell you this, you are not hard to love, you are not too much, you are not unworthy. What you are is a mirror that reflected back their inability to be present. And instead of rising to meet you, they chose the easier path, disappearing. That is not rejection of you, it is rejection of their own growth. And yet, despite all this, there is still a part of you that longs for them to return. That's normal. The mind craves closure, and the heart remembers the good moments more easily than the pain. But I want you to see this clearly. Longing for their return is not about them. It's about your desire to heal what was left unfinished. You are not missing them as much as you are missing the piece of a story that had no ending. When you understand this, you stop chasing the vanisher and start chasing your own healing. Because here's the ultimate truth. The pain of being abandoned is not a reflection of your weakness. It is an invitation to discover your strength. You are not defined by the ones who disappear. You are defined by how you rise when they do. And even though their silence tried to break you, it actually awakened something greater inside you. The realization that your worth has never depended on anyone else showing up. And that is where your power begins. When someone disappears without warning, it feels like a part of your story was stolen from you. But when that same person decides to reappear, the situation becomes even more complicated. Their return can stir emotions that you thought you buried, memories, old feelings, even the hope that maybe this time will be different. But before you let those emotions carry you away, you need to understand something very important: why people vanish in the first place. Because once you know their patterns, you no longer fall into their traps. You see them clearly, and clarity is freedom. Vanishers rarely leave because of you. Most often, they vanish because of themselves. They run not from you, but from responsibility. They hide not from your love, but from the weight of their own fears. Many vanish because they lack emotional maturity. They are afraid of real closeness, because closeness requires honesty, effort, and vulnerability. And for some people, that is terrifying. It feels easier to walk away than to face their own shortcomings. Others vanish because they are driven by selfishness. They chase temporary excitement, and when that thrill fades, so do they. They may enjoy the attention you give, the comfort of your presence, the warmth of your care, but the moment they feel challenged to give the same in return, they retreat. It is not love they seek, but convenience. It is not partnership they want, but an escape from loneliness. And once their loneliness is filled, they no longer see a reason to stay. Some vanish because they struggle with avoidance. In psychology, there's something called an avoidant attachment style. These people crave connection, but the moment they feel it becoming real, they panic. Instead of leaning in, they run. Instead of communicating, they shut down. Their leaving has nothing to do with your worth. It is their way of coping with emotions they don't know how to handle. And when they vanish, it's not because you are unlovable. It's because they fear the depth of love itself. Understanding these reasons is powerful because it helps you stop blaming yourself. Their actions are not a reflection of your value. They are a reflection of their inner struggles. You cannot fix someone who is not willing to face themselves. You cannot hold together what another person is determined to break. And you cannot carry the weight of someone who keeps choosing to drop their own responsibilities. When a vanisher returns, remember this: they are not returning because they suddenly became stronger, wiser, or more capable of loving you the way you deserve. Most often, they return for reasons that have nothing to do with growth. Maybe life became lonely. Maybe other options didn't work out. Maybe they realized the attention and care you gave them is not easy to find. But notice, all of these reasons are centered around them, not you. Their return is not proof of your worth, it is proof of their instability. This is why you must shift your perspective. Do not see their return as validation. See it as a mirror. Their coming back shows you exactly who they are: inconsistent, unreliable, and unworthy of the pedestal your pain once placed them on. When they left, they revealed their character. When they return, they confirm it. And once you see it clearly, you are no longer fooled by their timing. Here is where your strength lies. You have the power to redefine what their return means. Instead of asking, why did they leave? Start asking, why should I let them back in? Instead of wondering, do they still want me? Ask yourself, do I even want them? This shift is everything. Because the moment you stop seeing their presence as a gift, you stop giving away your power. Think of it this way: if a person can vanish once, they can vanish again. Their pattern is already written. The question is not whether they will stay. The question is whether you will allow yourself to depend on someone who already proved they cannot be depended on. Psychology teaches us that past behavior is the strongest predictor of future behavior. And if someone showed you they can leave without explanation, that knowledge is not meant to be ignored. It is meant to guide you. But here's where many women struggle. The heart wants to believe in change. You may think, maybe they realized their mistake. Maybe they grew during the time apart. Maybe this time will be different. And while growth is possible, true growth takes time, effort, and deep self-awareness. A sudden reappearance is not proof of transformation. Words of regret are not proof of commitment. What matters is action, and action is consistent. Anyone can return for a moment. Only the worthy stay for the long run. This is why you must stand firm in your truth. Do not let loneliness, nostalgia, or hope blur your vision, because the very fact that they vanished means they are capable of choosing absence over presence. And a love that disappears is not love, it is convenience dressed in affection. Real love shows up, real love stays, real love does not vanish. So the next time someone who disappeared suddenly comes back, remember this: their return is not an opportunity for you to prove your worth. It is an opportunity for you to recognize theirs, or rather, the lack of it. Their reappearance is not a gift to you. It is a chance for you to practice boundaries, to exercise self-respect, and to show yourself that you are no longer the woman who will accept less than she deserves. Because in the end, the reason people vanish is not the mystery you need to solve. The real focus is on the choice you make now. Do you step back into the same cycle? Or do you step into a higher version of yourself, one who no longer entertains vanishers, but instead chooses partners who are present, consistent, and ready to value what you bring? That is the true power of understanding why they disappear. It frees you from the illusion that their actions were ever about your worth. And it reminds you that when they return, the decision is no longer in their hands. It is in yours. When someone who once walked away suddenly shows up again, it is easy to feel like they're holding the cards. They appear unannounced, and in that moment, your heart races. Old feelings rise, and for a brief second, it can feel as though they hold the power to decide what happens next. But the truth is very different. Their disappearance already revealed who they are. Their return does not grant them control. It offers you the chance to step into your own strength. The balance has shifted. You may not realize it at first, but the power now belongs to you. Think about what happened during the time they were gone. You lived without them. You carried the weight of unanswered questions and survived the storm of doubt. You built yourself back up piece by piece, even when it felt impossible. That survival is proof of something important. You do not need them to breathe, to smile, to continue. The moment they return, they are not coming back to the same version of you they left behind. They are standing before someone stronger, wiser, and harder to break. That strength changes everything. Psychology teaches us that when people leave, they assume the one left behind will always remain available. They believe that their absence will not cost them anything. This belief is what gives them the confidence to vanish in the first place. But their return exposes their miscalculation. They come back expecting to find you waiting where they left you. What they do not expect is to face someone who no longer sees them as essential. This realization is what shifts the dynamic. The vanisher thought they had the power, but time has revealed the opposite. You may not feel it immediately, but once you recognize this shift, you begin to see their return for what it truly is, not a triumph for them, but a test for you. Will you let them dictate the narrative again? Or will you stand firmly in the knowledge that you hold the authority now? The strength lies in understanding that you are the one who decides whether they even earn a response, let alone a place in your life. Their reappearance is not your second chance. It is their request for access, and requests can be denied. This is where inner clarity matters most. You must remind yourself of a simple truth. If someone could disappear without explanation once, they prove that your well-being was never their priority. And if your well-being was not their priority before, it should not suddenly become negotiable now. The fact that you endured their absence already proves you are capable without them. Their return does not change that truth. It only confirms it. There is something liberating about viewing their reappearance through this lens. Instead of seeing yourself as the one being chosen, you realize you are the one choosing. Instead of wondering whether they will stay, you recognize that the question is whether you will allow them to. This reversal is powerful because it takes you from being reactive to being decisive. No longer are you waiting for answers. You are the one giving them. Human behavior is predictable. Those who vanish often expect forgiveness simply because they decided to come back. They believe their return erases the pain of their absence. But life does not work that way, and neither does respect. Respect is built on consistency, and consistency was the very thing they broke. When they return, they are not walking into the same story. They are walking into a reality where you hold the pen and you decide whether this chapter continues or ends for good. The beauty of this moment lies in how much growth it reveals. Their reappearance is not about romance, it is about resilience. It shows you how much you have changed since the silence. You no longer chase explanations. You no longer beg for clarity. You no longer give power to someone who did not value it the first time. Instead, you stand tall in the recognition that their presence or absence does not determine your future. You are the constant in your own story, and they are the variable that proved unreliable. It is also important to recognize the emotions that surface when they come back. You may feel anger, relief, or even temptation. These emotions are natural, but they are not commands. Feelings do not have to decide your actions. By pausing, by taking a breath, you remind yourself that emotions are temporary, but choices leave lasting impact. And in that pause, you find control. You are not required to respond immediately. You are not required to open the door just because they knocked. Silence can be just as powerful as words, and waiting can be stronger than rushing. When you embrace this new position of power, something incredible happens. You stop seeing their return as an opportunity for love and start seeing it as an opportunity for truth. You recognize that their choices in the past have already written their character, and your choices in the present reveal your growth. The power shift is not about punishing them, it is about protecting yourself. It is about drawing a line that says, my peace is worth more than your inconsistency. So when a vanisher reappears, remind yourself, you already won the moment they left, and you continue to rise. You already proved your strength by surviving what was meant to break you. Their return does not erase your progress, it only gives you the chance to show it. You do not need to plead for their loyalty, because you already discovered the most loyal companion you will ever have, yourself. And that is the truth of this shift. They may have left thinking they had the power, but their return only reveals what you already know. The real power was never in their leaving. It has always been in your ability to keep moving forward. When someone who once vanished reappears, the first instinct for many is to respond quickly. It feels urgent, almost like a test you must pass right away. But the truth is, you don't have to rush. In fact, the greatest strength you can show is restraint. A pause is not weakness, it is power. It is proof that your emotions are no longer dictating your actions. It is the space where you regain full control over the situation. Silence creates a shift. When you do not answer immediately, you send a message without saying a word. You communicate that your life does not revolve around their timing. You remind them that they cannot simply vanish and expect the same level of access they once had. This pause breaks the pattern they are used to. They expect eagerness. They expect you to welcome them back without hesitation. But when you take your time, you shatter that expectation. You set a new standard, one that says, I respond on my terms, not yours. From a psychological perspective, delay strengthens your position. Human beings naturally value what does not come easily. When your answer is not immediate, it signals that your attention is not cheap. It shows that you weigh decisions carefully. And whether consciously or unconsciously, the vanisher begins to recognize that your value has increased. You are no longer the same person they left. You are someone who now understands the worth of your time, your energy, and your presence. It is important to understand what happens internally during this pause. When you don't rush to respond, you give yourself space to check in with your true feelings. You ask yourself, do I actually want this person back in my life? What did their absence teach me? Do their actions align with the kind of love I deserve? These questions are vital because they separate impulse from wisdom. Without this pause, emotions can easily blur judgment. But with it, you rise above temporary feelings and move into clarity. This moment of silence also allows you to remember the journey you walked while they were gone. You think about how you built yourself back up, how you discovered strength in solitude, how you learned that you could stand on your own. These memories remind you that you do not need to grasp at their return. You are no longer seeking validation from them. The pause is your way of honoring everything you went through and choosing not to let it go to waste. Another powerful element of restraint is the psychological weight it places on the vanisher. People who disappear often assume they can come back whenever they want and be welcomed instantly. Your silence disrupts that assumption. It makes them question what has changed. It forces them to sit in the discomfort of waiting, something they once made you endure. This reversal is not about revenge. It is about balance. For the first time, they must feel what it is like not to be prioritized. And while they wait, you hold the power. You are not chasing. You are not begging. You are not scrambling to earn their attention. Instead, you are standing firmly in your own worth, deciding if they are even deserving of a response. This is a radical shift in dynamic, and it only happens when you allow yourself the discipline of silence. Think of it like this: a rushed answer is reactive, but a measured answer is intentional. A reactive answer is about pleasing them, but an intentional answer is about protecting you. The pause gives you that intention. It allows you to respond in a way that reflects your strength, not your longing. It turns the situation from something they control into something you control completely. There's another hidden benefit of waiting. It gives you emotional distance. Time, even a small amount of it, cools the fire of impulse. In the heat of the moment, feelings can trick you into believing their return is a blessing. But with space, you see more clearly. You remember their absence, the pain, and the growth you earned through it. You remember that they did not choose you when it mattered most. And suddenly, their reappearance no longer feels like a prize. It feels like a choice you get to evaluate. This is where real confidence comes from. Confidence is not about answering quickly to prove you are unbothered. Confidence is about knowing you don't need to prove anything at all. It is about standing in silence without fear, because you understand your worth is not tied to their attention. By not rushing, you demonstrate that you no longer live in the shadow of their approval. You live in the light of your own dignity. So when they show up again, take a breath. Let the silence settle. Remind yourself that your time is valuable. Your life is full. Your worth is not measured by how quickly you answer a message or return a call. The pause is your shield. It is your reminder that the choice is yours and yours alone. Because ultimately, what matters is not how fast you respond, but how true your response is to the woman you have become. And that truth only emerges when you give yourself space to think, feel, and decide from a place of strength. Your silence is not emptiness. It is a declaration that you will never again let someone else's timing dictate your value. That is why restraint is not weakness. It is power, wrapped in calm. It is the invisible boundary that tells the vanisher, I am not who I was before. I choose now, not you. And once you understand this, you will never again feel the need to rush into the arms of someone who once left you behind when the silence has done its work and you are ready to speak. The words you choose matter more than you realize. Your response should never be about winning them back or proving that you are still waiting. It should be about clarity, dignity, and boundaries. What you say in that moment is not just an answer to them, it is a declaration to yourself. It is the moment where you decide that your value will no longer be questioned, not even by the one who once abandoned you. The most powerful way to respond is to keep it simple. Long explanations, emotional confessions, or attempts to make them understand your pain only hand them more control. The vanisher already showed you that they cannot handle depth. Giving them paragraphs of your truth will not suddenly make them capable of respecting it. But short, calm, deliberate words, those carry weight. They draw a line that cannot be crossed. They make it clear that you are no longer entertaining inconsistency. For example, you can choose a response that reflects closure. I've moved forward. These 3 words are complete. They do not invite further discussion. They do not seek validation, and they do not leave space for manipulation. They are strong because they show that you are no longer tied to the past. Another option is to address the behavior directly. I value consistency, not disappearing acts. This is not an insult. It is a truth. It lets them know that you are aware of what happened and you refuse to lower your standards. A third possibility is to close the chapter with certainty. My life is full now. I don't revisit unfinished chapters. This communicates self-respect, growth, and finality. Why do these words work? Because they are not emotional reactions. They are intentional choices. They reveal that you are not begging for answers or attention. Instead, you are showing self-control, and self-control is magnetic. From a psychological standpoint, people are drawn to strength. When you respond with brevity and confidence, you shift the emotional balance. The vanisher, who once assumed they had the upper hand, now sees that you are not dependent on their presence. This realization creates an impact far deeper than anger or tears ever could. It is important to remember that the goal is not to punish them with your words. The goal is to protect your own peace. By keeping your response short and steady, you preserve your energy. You avoid being pulled into a cycle of explanations, apologies, or empty promises. The vanisher may try to lure you into long conversations, but you are under no obligation to provide them with emotional comfort. Your responsibility is to yourself, and the right words make that clear. Some women fear that being brief makes them appear cold or uncaring, but in reality, it shows strength. People respect boundaries even when they do not like them. A calm, firm response is not cold, it is confident. And confidence is far more powerful than any attempt to appear understanding or accommodating. You are not closing the door with anger, you are closing it with grace. There is a difference. Grace is not weakness, it is discipline. Another reason to choose short, deliberate words is that they reduce the chance of regret. When emotions run high, it is easy to overshare, to say too much, or to reveal feelings you no longer want to carry. But when you keep your words few, you remain in control. You can walk away knowing you expressed yourself with strength, not desperation, and that self-respect will stay with you long after the conversation ends. Consider this. Words are not just communication, they are identity. What you say shapes the way you see yourself. If your words are needy, you reinforce a sense of lack within yourself. But if your words are steady and firm, you reinforce your strength. The vanisher may hear your response once, but you will carry its echo inside you for far longer. That echo should remind you of your growth, not your pain. It's also crucial to realize that you don't owe them softness. You gave them trust before, and they chose to disappear. You gave them your presence, and they walked away. They already made their choice, and you are making yours now. Your words do not need to cushion them from the consequences of their behavior. They need to honor the woman you have become through the fire of abandonment. That woman does not lower her standards to accommodate someone who once discarded her. So when the moment comes, remember, less is more. Directness is power. Calmness is strength. And every sentence you choose should serve as a reminder to them and to yourself that your worth is not negotiable. The right words will not only close the door to the vanisher, they will open the door to a future where you no longer settle for half-hearted love. Your words are not just an answer, they are your declaration of self-respect. And when you speak with that truth, you are no longer the one left waiting. You are the one walking forward with dignity. And that is the only message that truly matters. When you choose calm and firm words, something powerful happens beneath the surface. The impact of those words is not just in what they communicate outwardly, but in the psychological effect they create. Short, steady responses shift the entire balance of power. They stop the vanisher from controlling the conversation, and they restore authority to you. But more than that, they send a message that goes beyond language, a message of self-respect. Why are brief, strong replies so effective? Because they cut off room for manipulation. A vanisher thrives in gray areas. They rely on uncertainty, because uncertainty keeps you questioning. They feed on the hope that maybe things will be different this time, that maybe they will finally explain themselves. If you leave the door wide open with long conversations or emotional explanations, you give them space to twist the narrative. But when you use a simple, direct response, there is no confusion. You draw a line so clear that it cannot be misunderstood. And in that clarity, you win. Psychology explains this through the principle of boundaries. Healthy boundaries are not long speeches or endless negotiations. They are short, firm statements that define what is and is not acceptable. When you say, "I value consistency" or "I've moved on," you are not just speaking to them, you are speaking to yourself. You are reminding yourself of the standard you refuse to lower. And every time you stand by that boundary, you strengthen the belief that you are worthy of respect. Another reason strong words matter is because of the emotional tone they carry. Calmness communicates control. Anger communicates pain. Begging communicates desperation. But steadiness, that communicates confidence. People instinctively recognize strength when they hear it. Even the vanisher, who once underestimated you, cannot ignore it. Your tone becomes a mirror, reflecting back the truth they tried to overlook. You are no longer the person who tolerated their absence. These kinds of responses also change the way you view yourself. Self-image is built through repetition. Every time you allow someone to cross your boundaries, you unconsciously teach yourself that your feelings are secondary. But every time you enforce your standards with clear words, you reinforce the idea that you deserve more. And over time, this belief becomes unshakable. The words you speak outwardly become the truth you live inwardly. It is also important to understand the silence that follows your words. The vanisher may try to argue. They may attempt to charm you. They may even get defensive, hoping to draw you back into the chaos of over-explaining. But the strength lies not in engaging. It lies in holding steady. After you've spoken your truth, you do not need to justify it. Boundaries don't require debate. They require discipline. And the less you explain, the more powerful your message becomes. Think of it this way. Your short, confident response is like a door locking quietly. It doesn't slam, it doesn't shout. It simply closes with certainty. And once it closes, the vanisher is left on the outside, realizing that the access they once took for granted is no longer theirs to claim. That realization is heavy, because for the first time, they must face the consequence of their own choices. They are forced to see that you are no longer available at their convenience. But here is the deeper truth. The real power of these words is not about how they affect the vanisher. It's about how they free you. When you speak with firmness, you are not just protecting yourself from them, you are releasing yourself from the cycle of confusion. You are no longer waiting for answers. You are no longer hoping for closure. You are creating closure with your own voice. That freedom is priceless because it shifts the focus away from what they did to you and back onto what you are choosing for yourself. This is where growth happens. Every strong response you give plants a seed of confidence. It tells you that you no longer allow your value to be dictated by someone else's choices. And each time you honor that truth, you build a new version of yourself, one who refuses to settle for inconsistency, one who knows her own worth without needing proof from anyone else. That transformation cannot be undone. Notice also how these words protect your peace. Long emotional exchanges drain energy. They reopen wounds that were already healing. But short, decisive responses close the door quickly, allowing you to move forward without dragging the past into the present. This is self-care in its purest form, choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and strength over vulnerability to manipulation. Some may wonder if such direct words risk pushing the vanisher away completely. But the truth is, that is the point. If they cannot respect your boundaries, they do not belong in your life. Your words are a filter. They separate those who are capable of honoring your worth from those who are not. And that is not loss, it is protection. So, when you stand in front of someone who once disappeared, and you choose to answer with calm, strong words, you are doing more than speaking. You are declaring that you are no longer the woman who waits for someone else to decide her value, declaring that you choose clarity over confusion, declaring that you will no longer give your energy to those who cannot hold it with care. In the end, these words are not about them. They are about you. They are about the woman you became in the silence, the strength you discovered in the absence, and the dignity you now refuse to surrender. And when you choose to speak from that place, no vanisher, no ghost, no fleeting presence can ever hold power over you again. There comes a moment after the vanisher reappears and you have spoken your truth when you must decide whether their presence has any place in your life at all. This decision is not made through emotion, but through clarity. Because once you have drawn your line, the real test begins. They may apologize. They may promise change. They may even present a softer version of themselves, hoping you will lower your guard. But psychology shows us that patterns rarely shift overnight. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And if disappearing was their choice once, you must ask yourself what guarantees they can give that it won't happen again. This is where self-trust becomes everything. It is easy to be swayed by words when they sound sweet, but you must pay attention to actions. Human beings reveal their priorities not by what they say, but by what they consistently do. Anyone can deliver promises. Anyone can tell you what you want to hear. But consistency cannot be faked. When someone vanishes, they have already shown you how they handle discomfort, responsibility, or commitment. They chose silence when honesty was needed. They chose absence when presence mattered. And those choices speak louder than any apology they might bring back with them. So the question is not whether they deserve another chance. The question is whether you deserve to put yourself back in the same uncertainty. Why gamble your peace when you have already experienced the pain of their absence? Why offer space to someone who once treated your heart like an option? You see, the deeper truth is that this is not about whether they have changed. It is about whether you are willing to risk your growth by stepping back into old cycles. Psychology teaches us that humans crave what is familiar, even when it is harmful. This is why so many people return to relationships that once hurt them. The brain mistakes familiarity for safety, but growth requires breaking that pattern. It requires choosing what is good for you over what feels familiar. The Vanisher's return is not a sign for you to go backwards. It is a test to see if you have learned to move forward. When you stand firm, you reclaim control. You tell yourself that your value is not negotiable and that love should never arrive with conditions or vanish without explanation. Set a new standard, not just for them, but for yourself. Because the truth is, your boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They are gates that let only the right kind of love in. And when you refuse to reopen the door to someone who once disrespected your presence, you are telling the universe, I am ready for better. But let's be honest, letting go is not easy. There will be moments when memories whisper. There will be nights when the heart tries to argue with the mind. In those moments, you must remind yourself of the silence they gave you. You must remember the confusion, the sleepless nights, the unanswered questions. Do not romanticize their return and forget the reality of their disappearance. The same person who left you once is capable of leaving again. And no apology erases the fact that they made that choice. Strength is built by choosing yourself, even when the other option seems tempting. Strength is saying, I will not settle for someone who cannot stay. It is reminding yourself that love should bring peace, not anxiety. That love should create safety, not doubt. And when you accept this truth, you no longer see their return as an opportunity. You see it as a test of your discipline. Another layer of this is identity. Every choice you make shapes the story you tell yourself about who you are. If you accept a vanisher back without change, you reinforce the idea that you are someone who tolerates inconsistency. But if you stand firm, you reinforce the truth that you are a woman who honors her worth. And that truth becomes the foundation for everything else you attract into your life. Understand this. You are not rejecting them out of anger. You are protecting yourself out of wisdom. Wisdom comes from experience. You lived through the ache of their absence, and now you carry the lesson. That lesson is not meant to make you bitter, but to make you stronger. To show you that your heart deserves more than someone who disappears when things get difficult. So when a vanisher comes back, you have a choice. You can open the door and invite the same uncertainty inside, or you can close it with grace and keep walking toward a future built on consistency, love, and respect. One choice keeps you trapped in cycles. The other breaks the pattern forever. One choice drains your spirit, the other strengthens it. And the truth is, deep down, you already know which path honors the woman you are becoming. Do not let temporary feelings trick you into forgetting permanent lessons. Do not let sweet words blind you to repeated actions. And most importantly, do not let someone's return distract you from the freedom you worked so hard to build in their absence. You survived without them. You grew stronger without them. You do not need them to validate the person you are now. The vanisher may come back with charm, but you come back with power. And that power is in your choice. The choice to protect your heart, the choice to honor your growth, the choice to refuse anything less than the love you truly deserve. That is the real victory. And that is the moment you finally rise above the cycle for good. Every time you respond to someone who once vanished, you are not just speaking to them, you are shaping the standard for how people are allowed to treat you. Words are powerful, but choices are louder. And the choice you make when they return is a reflection of the life you are building for yourself. It is not only about romance, it is about respect, about dignity, about the values that guide every relationship you allow into your world. When someone disappears, and then tries to step back in, what they are really testing is not your forgiveness, but your foundation. Do you know your worth so deeply that you will not bend? Or will you trade your peace for the illusion of love? This moment is a mirror. It shows you whether you have been living in alignment with your truth or whether you are still tempted by the comfort of old patterns. The beauty of this situation is that it gives you the chance to redefine yourself. Instead of seeing their return as a disruption, see it as a spotlight on your growth. You are no longer the person who once tolerated uncertainty. You have built strength through the silence, courage through the confusion, and wisdom through the waiting. When you stand in front of someone who once vanished, you are not standing as the same version of yourself they left behind. You are standing taller, clearer, stronger, and in that strength you have the power to make a choice that honors your future instead of repeating your past. Psychology shows that people treat us based on what we allow. If you accept less than you deserve, you unconsciously train others to believe it is acceptable. But when you uphold your standards without wavering, you retrain not only others but also yourself. You begin to internalize a new story. I am not someone who waits to be chosen. I am someone who chooses myself first. This story becomes your shield, protecting you from falling back into the cycle of chasing love that cannot be consistent. This is why discipline matters more than desire. Desire might want to hear them out, but discipline remembers the pain. Desire might crave their presence, but discipline recalls their absence. Discipline is the voice that reminds you that self-respect is not negotiable. And every time you act with discipline, you strengthen a muscle inside you, the muscle of self-control. That muscle ensures that when emotions try to pull you backwards, your inner strength keeps you grounded in what you truly deserve. There is also the matter of self-identity. Humans act in ways that are consistent with who they believe they are. If you see yourself as someone unworthy of stability, you will unconsciously accept instability. But if you see yourself as someone deserving of loyalty, you will only welcome relationships that reflect that. Identity shapes destiny. So when you stand before someone who once abandoned you, the question is simple: who am I now? Am I still the woman who tolerated vanishing acts? Or am I the woman who now demands reliability? Your answer to that question shapes every step forward. It is not enough to recognize your worth, you must enforce it. Boundaries without action are only words. When you say you deserve better, but still accept the same treatment, you create a conflict within yourself. That conflict chips away at confidence. But when your actions match your words, you create harmony. You begin to trust yourself again. And that self-trust is priceless, because it becomes the foundation of unshakable confidence. Remember, too, that love is not meant to be begged for or chased. True love is mutual. It is consistent. It does not vanish when challenges appear, nor does it return only when it is convenient. If someone disappears, they are showing you their definition of love. Believe it. Do not romanticize their return. Do not rewrite their story in softer colors. Believe the truth they already revealed through their actions. And then, choose to honor yourself enough to walk away from what does not align with the love you desire. Every time you say no to someone who cannot respect your value, you are saying yes to yourself. You are creating space for something greater, something lasting, something real. It might not arrive today, it might not arrive tomorrow, but when it does, it will find you whole. And it will find you already complete because you did not lower your standards out of fear of being alone. The courage to walk away is not about rejecting others. It is about protecting your future. It is about creating a life where your peace is not disrupted by uncertainty, where your heart is not broken by inconsistency, where your spirit is not drained by someone who disappears when you need them most. That kind of life begins the moment you decide that a vanisher's return does not define your worth. So let their reappearance be a reminder, not a temptation. A reminder of how far you have come, a reminder of how much you have grown, a reminder that you now choose clarity, loyalty, and consistency over confusion, silence, and games. Because the truth is, their absence already taught you everything you needed to know, and their return is only an opportunity for you to show how much stronger you have become. At the end of the day, the decision is not about them. It is about you. It is about the life you want to live, the love you want to accept, and the standard you refuse to lower. And when you choose yourself with unwavering strength, you not only close the door on a cycle that once hurt you, You open the door to a future that finally matches the love you deserve. When someone who once disappeared suddenly reappears, it is natural to feel a storm of emotions. A part of you might feel curiosity, another part might feel anger, and deep inside, there may even be a piece that still longs for their presence. But this is where the most important truth must guide you. Emotions are temporary, but the choices you make in those emotional moments can have permanent consequences. If you act only from the heat of the heart, you may find yourself back in the very pain you worked so hard to overcome. That is why clarity must rise above emotion. Clarity is what protects you from being pulled back into cycles that do not serve your highest self. Consider how powerful silence really is. The moment they vanished, you were left with unanswered questions, but also with space to grow. You may not have chosen that silence, but in it, you discovered parts of yourself you might not have noticed before. You learned how to stand on your own. You learned how to rebuild. And now, as they attempt to return, you must decide whether to give away the ground you gained or to protect it. Psychology shows us that growth often happens in discomfort. That period of their absence forced you into discomfort, but from it, strength was born. Do not waste that growth by handing it back too quickly. This moment is not about whether they miss you. It is about whether you have evolved beyond needing them. Every time someone vanishes, what they leave behind is not just emptiness, but evidence. Evidence of how they handle pressure, evidence of how they value your heart, evidence of what their loyalty truly means. When they come back, they may bring explanations, but explanations do not erase evidence. You cannot ignore the reality of their choices simply because they now want to reclaim your attention. What matters most now is your response, because your response is a declaration of self-worth. If you respond with desperation, you hand them control. If you respond with calm and composure, you keep your power. And that power is what reminds you and them that your value is not dependent on their presence. True confidence does not scream or argue. True confidence stands still, knowing it does not need to beg. The way you carry yourself in this moment tells the story of the person you have become. Think about this. If love must disappear and return, was it ever love at all? Real love is steady. Real love remains even when things are difficult. Real love does not vanish when it feels inconvenient. By returning now, what they are truly asking is for you to ignore reality. They are asking you to overlook the instability they once gave you. But wisdom refuses to pretend. Wisdom looks at the full picture and says, if you could walk away once, you could walk away again. That thought alone should be enough to remind you that your heart deserves more than uncertainty. When you stand firm in this moment, you teach yourself a lesson even more important than anything they could say. You teach yourself that you can be trusted with your own happiness. The truth is, the most painful part of losing someone is not losing them. It is losing trust in yourself for allowing them too close. But every time you honor your boundaries, you rebuild that trust. You prove to yourself that you will no longer betray your own peace. And nothing creates more confidence than knowing you will not abandon yourself again. It is easy to confuse longing with love, but they are not the same. Longing is born out of absence. Love is born out of presence. Longing is the hunger for what once was. Love is the security of what consistently is. Do not confuse the ache of missing someone with proof that they should return. The ache is only a sign of being human, not a sign of destiny. And if you confuse the two, you risk stepping back into something that never truly honored you in the first place. This is the season to remember that your future cannot be built on recycled promises. Every day you delay your decision, you risk slowing your growth, and life is too short to keep repeating lessons you have already learned. What you need now is not recycled words, but new experiences, new connections, new love that aligns with the person you are becoming. The more you cling to the past, the less room you leave for the future to find you. So if they reappear, remember this: their return is not a gift, it is a test.